All right. Hello, everybody, and welcome once again to another remote chat. So we actually have here Kasie Whitener. Did I say that correct? Whitener? Whitner?
It's Kasie.
Kasie. Yeah, I'm sorry. I apologize, Kasie. And we're here again just to talk about all things remote work, and in fact that we're going to particularly talk today about management style and how that is going to be so different in this kind of environment compared to being in an office. But Kasie, I'll let you go ahead and introduce yourself.
Okay, well, thank you. Thank you for inviting me and for having me on your show. So I am the president of a consulting firm called Clemson Road Consulting, and we do process documentation and organizational management consulting for technology companies. We basically help software companies herd cats. That's our primary aim. We started our company as a remote asynchronous company. So everybody that works for me as consultants, they all work from home. They all work on site with clients, and they work whenever they can. So some of them work at night, some work on the weekends, some work in the middle of the day. Some of us go to the movies at 2 o'clock on a Tuesday. We just kind of work when we need to work. And it's all about the models that we have put into place to manage ourselves to results instead of managing to a time clock or managing to hourly rates or managing to a 40-hour work week. We don't do 40-hour work weeks.
Nice. So can you describe like this inspiration or this moment that you had where you realized that the regular 40-hour work week, the 9 to 5 day-to-day structure wasn't going to work with how you were setting up your business?
Yeah, so I think probably the biggest challenge is figuring out what do results look like for the contributors in your organization, and how can you look at each person and say you're helping our company achieve a particular strategic goal, and the tasks and activities we expect you to be involved in are all aimed at that strategic goal. And it makes management harder because management can be really easy if you're just looking to see if people have logged in. It can be really easy if you walk in the building and you give everybody credit for being there. It can be really easy if you say to somebody, you're failing because you've called in sick 5 days in a row, right? If you want to be a good manager in most corporate America, you're kind of keeping your eye on the clock as the people leave for lunch, and you're watching them when they come back in. Did they get here at 1:02? Did they get here at 1:05? And all that stuff it's arbitrary. It doesn't really contribute to the goals of the company. It doesn't help us achieve the company's objectives. So we think about management as looking at every division has its own corporate objectives that they have to achieve in order to help the company move forward. And when we break those objectives down and decide what work has to be done under each of them, then we hire people to do that work. And we think if the people are doing their work, then you should just let them do it. It doesn't matter where they do it, when they do it, how they do it, as long as they get it done. So on our side, we think managers are not being challenged enough when they're given something like a 40-hour work week to manage to. When they're given an 8 to 5 and they say, go ahead and make sure everybody's here when they're supposed to be here. We don't think managers are being challenged. We think managers are challenged when they think about, how do my people meet strategic objectives? How are they contributing to the overall value of the company? And ultimately, I think people feel more valued when they know how the work they're doing contributes to the company's success. So in the long run, people feel like they're not just getting away with going to the movies at 2 o'clock on a Tuesday, but they feel like the work they're doing is really valued by the corporation and by the people that that they're working for, their managers and their executives. So we think we know that some organizations have to have people in the building. We have a work model called a resident, and the resident work model is somebody who is in the building. And that person may be there because they do their best work in the building, because their kids in daycare downstairs. They may be there because they have distractions at home, and so they need to be in the office. Resident people can be responsible for things like making sure the coffee gets made and making sure the printer gets fixed and those kinds of things. Resident people can open the door when the customers show up at the door. We think that's fine. We don't think the resident has to be there 40 hours a week, but the resident should be on site for a good period of time, and they should be the person that kind of holds down the fort at the office. Some people work better in the office. The zone employee is somebody who comes in and out. Maybe we think of them as kind of like adjunct instructors, where they show up, they do their work, and then they go away. We think that model works well for people who maybe have elderly parents they have to care for. Maybe they have kids getting off the bus and they need to be home for those kids. Maybe they teach fitness classes in the morning, right? And so they're at spin class in the morning, and then they're going to come in after that. Whatever their lifestyle requires them to be off site with some level of frequency. So they come in, they're here for meetings, they're here for collaborative exercises, or they're working here because, their house is being renovated or something, right? Your zone people kind of go around back and forth. They're also expected to be in the community, visiting customers, going to community events and things like that. And then satellite employees are people who may work in a completely different city than your office is in. And so your satellite employees are pretty much never on site. They're there maybe once a quarter, maybe once a year for your annual whatever. But for the most part, they're out there visiting customers, going to events, and working remotely, working from home. And all three of those models are not meant to be like, I'm a resident until I earn my way to zone or to satellite. It's not like that. And it's not about, I'm a corporate trainer, so I have to be a resident. It's not like that either. It's all meant to be fluid so that, for the few years that my daughter was in daycare, it was better for me to be a zone employee so that I didn't have to leave her in daycare all the time. But I could be a resident when she went to elementary school because she's in elementary school for 6 hours at a time. So that worked out just fine for me, right? So I think as we look at people's career trajectories and the way their role changes, you might become a manager of somebody who needs you on site. Then I go into a resident model to be able to do that. And we think that people can slide back and forth between resident and zone and satellite and back to resident or back to satellite or however that needs to work as my career progresses. But all of this is about knowledge work. It's about financial analysts, business analysts, software developers, all these people who are doing the kind of independent knowledge work that can be done with their brains, and they don't need to be physically moving things around. I think the corporate trainer is probably my favorite example. When I was a corporate trainer and we had new hire training, Monday through Friday, I had to be in the building from 8 to 5 because our new hires were there and they didn't know what to do if I wasn't there to help them, right? But then on the weeks that I wasn't training, why did I have to be sitting in the building from 8 to 5? Why couldn't I be working from home? Why couldn't I be working, a couple of hours on site and a couple of hours off site? So when we think of the fluidity of those models, it's really important to us to say, what are you working on that is appropriate for the goals your company is trying to achieve? And then where does that work need to occur? And how does that work need to occur? And make your day look like it should look to complete the tasks and activities you need to complete in order to help the company fulfill its mission. And that's kind of that has been behind our work model creation. That's been behind our consulting firm, and our perspective of all of this has just been, we know that the standard 8 to 5, the old industrial model of, people are interchangeable. Whoever comes in here from 8 to 5, and the person that comes in here from 5 to 11, and the person who comes in from 11 to 7, all those people are interchangeable in an industrial model. They're all just here to pull the lever, right? But in a knowledge economy, it's not that way. We're not interchangeable. Our individual skills and our experience and our knowledge is what makes our roles different. And we should be changing our work models to address those differences.
So along the
ideas
of no, I didn't stop you because it was gold, right? Come on. So thinking about these different models, right? One of the big points that you made was going from a hourly model to a results oriented model, right? So how do you then end up with your finances, right? How do you end up compensating those people, right? So is it the more effective person that doesn't spend as enough a number of hours doing the same kind of task gets paid the same as somebody else that's taking 5 hours instead of 3 hours for a task? So do you pay per task, or is it a salary based model, or how do you exchange those different models?
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, when we go back to like, how does an organization change? How do people change? How do companies adjust to everything we have available to us, technology and that kind of thing? I don't think we should expect to see the same behaviors over and over and over again. So I don't think there's anything radical about saying we should work differently. I don't think there's any kind of anarchy trying to happen. I don't think people are complaining. I don't think this is a response to millennials and, oh, millennials don't want to be in the office anymore. I don't think it's like that. I think it's more about when you have these new tools available, like our internet, our remote connectivity that we're enjoying right now. I think that we necessarily have to discount that. So when you think about salary and how do you compensate people, it's an easy model to say, I'm going to pay you for the hours that you're here. Mm-hmm. If you're paying a salary like $30,000 a year, then the work that you're doing for me is worth $30,000 a year, or it's worth 40, or it's worth 50, or it's worth 80. And I don't care how many hours you put in doing it, because the work you're doing is worth 80 grand to me. And if it's only taking you 2 weeks out of the year, then good on you, because you can spend the other 50 weeks vacationing, I guess. But for me as a business owner, I have to think about, what is this work worth to me? And then that comes into, so my dad's so funny about this, because he's always like, you're just opening a whole can of worms. And I'm like, open it. Good. But, like, dump them out. Let's talk about that. Like, let's figure out, how do you compensate people, and how do you incentivize people to do more work? When I've told them, what you're doing for me is worth $80,000, and that's what I'm going to pay you, what's to incentivize them to work harder or do more things? And I think, this probably very naive, but I believe that when people feel valued and they enjoy their work, they're going to work. They're gonna be excited about they're gonna want to do it. So I don't think I have to bribe you into working harder. I think you're gonna work harder because you want the company to succeed. And when the company succeeds, you succeed. And if you're not happy working for me and you're not happy doing what I need for you to do, I don't need you here. You need to be somewhere that you're going to be happy and you're going to make a difference. So coming in here and punching the clock for 8 hours a day doesn't help anybody. Not even if you're doing all the little administrative stuff that I don't want to do. If you're miserable, I don't want you here. So I've never felt like the time people are selling me their time. They're always selling me their skills. And so for me, my company has to say, we need these things done. It's worth this much to us. And if you're willing to work for that much, come join us and we'll pay you to do these things.
Fantastic. So, one of the benefits that I know about someone who is in what you call your satellite model, right? So they're never really coming into the office. You don't have to have those extra expenses of having an in-house employee. Do you find that outside of salary, you're able to provide other unique kind of benefits to those people, as well as another kind of incentivized way to keep productivity at an extremely high level?
So I think at some point, as an entrepreneur, as a sort of anarchist, right? I think all things get a chance to evolve and to change. So one of the idea of results, right? Okay. Results. Mm-hmm. We measure results in 3 ways. The first is, are you doing the job that you were paid to do? So are you meeting our client expectations? Are you actually delivering the work? If you're a software developer, you have to develop code. If you're a business analyst, we have reports that you need to be working on. So are you actually doing the work? If you're a corporate trainer, are you doing new hire training? Are you creating new hire training, right? Results. That's the first part, the work itself. The second is responsiveness. So when I need you, are you responding to me? And we created SLAs for that. So service level agreements. We have a kind of like a tiered hierarchy, right? If I text you 15 minutes or so to respond, if I call you, within 5 or 10 minutes to respond, if I email you, a couple of hours to respond, we have Slack, we use Slack.
Love
If we
Slack.
put something on
Oh yeah.
Slack, maybe 24 hours on Slack, but anyhow, we work out all these different ways we communicate, and we say the most urgent is a phone call,
Mm-hmm.
then a text message, right?
Mm-hmm.
Then a Slack message, then an email. And if I send you an email and you don't get to it for a week, it's on me to follow up, right?
Right. Right.
But the emails is sort of the least of them. So we have responsiveness, we have the results, and then the third piece is revenue. So we want to know, are you bringing money into the company? Are you bringing us new customers? Are you doing billable work? How are you helping the company grow our revenue? And all of our results are in those three categories, but we're very specific about what we recognize those achievements to be. And if you're meeting those achievements at the weekly, the monthly, the quarterly check-in, then we're good to go. I'll keep signing your paychecks. If we get to the end of the week and I'm like, hey man, you didn't actually do any work for me this week, and you go, well, yeah, but I have all these deadlines and they're next week, and I'm going to go, well, you're probably not going to want to wait till next week to do all that stuff. And we kind of had to learn that, like I have one consultant who I told her, you have to front load your week. You need to get all your work done on Monday, right? Because your kids are going to ruin your week. And if you don't get to Thursday and go, oh, it's not due till Friday, so I'll do it on Thursday. Right. No, it's due on Friday. You need to start it on Monday. And if it's done by Wednesday, good on you. But you don't need to wait till Thursday to even get started, because you're not going to, what happens when your kid is sick and you can't do it? So we had to learn that. And I think that's the good thing about being a human being, is you can learn things like that. And as a manager, you just have to figure out okay, you messed it up, but it's fine. The house did not burn down. Everything's fine. Let's move into the next week and start talking about how you can do a better job of prioritizing your work and working on things that are really important when you have time available. And again, I think we let managers off the hook because we tell them people are going to work from 8 to 5. And they think, well, if they're working from 8 to 5, they have plenty of time to do all this work. And you're like, well, in our models, they're not working from 8 to 5. So I have to make sure that they're prioritizing their work. And they know, just because we don't measure time doesn't mean that work doesn't take time. And so you do have
crazy
to think
how
about
that works out. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
But it just gets done,
I need to know how much time it's going to take, because I have to prepare myself to get all that work done, right?
Right.
So yeah, I guess that's kind of the hard lesson that we learned in our first few years of being in this model. And something, because I mentioned earlier before we were on camera, we read a book called Why Work Sucks and What to Do About It. And that's where that results oriented kind of got my brain kicking around. And one of the things they don't address in that book, which is why we felt like we had to write our own, is that work does take time. And as much as we want to say oh, we're not tied to the clock, that doesn't mean that you don't have to figure out how to manage yourself. Everybody has the same amount of time. So time management is garbage, but you manage yourself through the time that's available to you. And if you can figure out how to do that, then, as a remote employee, that's your responsibility, is to take care of that for yourself.
So I know we only have just 5 minutes before you have to leave. So I'd be remiss if I didn't ask you about all the fun tools that you use. Uh-oh. Can't hear me, so I'm typing my question.
A good response, though, yeah. It's not the back and forth we'd hoped for, though. Okay, so tools. Yeah, all right. So one more thing on tools, and then we'll call it quits. Call our experiment a semi-success. I mentioned we use Slack, so we use Slack back and forth to speak to one another. We use Zoho as a customer relationship management software. And there's a projects module inside Zoho, and we've used that before as well. We put everything in the cloud. Everything's in the cloud, and it's accessible to everybody. There's no my folder, your folder. We very rarely email things back and forth. If it's a document that I'm working on locally, I may upload it through Slack. But for the most part, everything is in the cloud on shared drive, so everybody has access to it. And right now we're a small operation, so that works for us. I think eventually we'll need a broader platform, something that's more comprehensive. But for now, we just have multiple tools that we're using. And my iPhone, of course, lots of iPhone.
Lots of iPhone, all the iPhone. You probably can't hear me right now anyway.
We were strictly Dropbox for a while, but
Okay.
I'm getting better at Google. And so now we're doing more Google Drive. It's actually a little easier than Dropbox. Dropbox is nice because it's very like local to my Mac, but the Google Drive is more intuitive, I find, than Dropbox. So.
I agree. I agree. Well, I will go ahead and let you go sooner because you can't hear me. Typing out this message for everybody that can't see us.
Like, because you're grinning, you must be making fun of me for not being able to hear anything you're
saying. No, I can't. And you're going to be able to hear this later on because I'm sure that it's actually recorded. But I will go ahead and
hey, that's the key to a good consultant. Always start on time, finish 5 minutes early. That is how consultants roll, man. And it's that, never look like you need the money. Those are the 3 rules of consulting. So thank you very much for having me. And if there's more to this, let me know. I'm glad to help you all in any way. And we'll be writing a ton about this. We're writing the book on it. We're doing the seminal research in a research project over the summer. So I'm glad to share this with you. And I think it's an important conversation we all have to have. So thank you.
Thank you so much as well. And I will see everyone next time.